Good morning and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. Here at Redeemer this year, our year has been shaped by a number of deaths our congregational family has experienced. In fact, last week we had 2 funerals, and we have another one next week. So that has provided me an opportunity to speak a little bit about matters of death and life. And I've been addressing questions that people have asked me. Except today. Today I want to speak about 2 questions, not that you have asked me, but that you should ask me, particularly about funerals. If you've attended a funeral here at Redeemer, you may have noticed that the casket or urn is covered over by a white cloth. This is called a funeral pall, and it's where we get the name pallbearers from, but it has a special significance. There, at a person's death, the pall is actually a reminder of the person's baptism. In fact, we call it a baptismal garment. As we enwrap the casket or urn in the pall, we are reminded visually that this person was and is wrapped and enfolded in Christ's righteousness through their baptism. In baptism, they died to sin and rose to new life in Christ, and that even now in our grief we have hope and assurance that they will rise to new life in Christ. So at someone's death, we are reminded that God has made this person God's child, and nothing will ever separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus. That's pretty powerful, but that's not all. You see, the pall has a democratization aspect to it too. Now, that's a big word, but it means that we're all equal or the same. On a practical level, that means that a rich person who might have a jewel-encrusted casket or the poor person who has a pressboard coffin, both come before God the same. No one will look on a casket in awe or wonder for its beauty or in pity at its shabbiness. We come before God alike. That's the practical side. On a more important note, the Pall tells us that we are all alike in needing the grace of God, and we are all alike in receiving the grace of God. There's one more practical matter. As you know, those who have served in the military often have their caskets draped in a flag. In that case, the flag is removed in the narthex just before the funeral and replaced by the pall while it is in the sanctuary. Then after the funeral, the pall is removed and the flag is replaced on the coffin. The pall is an important sign of baptism and God's love for all of us. But there's something else we use at funerals that you should notice too: the Christ candle. The Christ candle, or as it may also be called, the Paschal candle, stands near the head of the casket or near the urn and is lit. The Christ candle is a candle we light at times when there's a special emphasis on Christ. That sentence always seems odd to say to me because every Sunday is a celebration of Easter, so there's always a special emphasis on Christ. Nevertheless, there are times of the year when we light this candle to draw special attention. The Christ candle is lit during the season of Christmas, for example, when we celebrate Christ's birth and his coming among us to save us. It's a wonderful way to celebrate and think about Christ's love for us. Then the Christ candle is lit during the season of Easter as we remember and celebrate the resurrection and Christ's ultimate victory. There are 2 other times we light the Christ candle. The first is at baptisms, and as we hand the newly baptized a candle with the invitation to let Christ's light shine through them in their lives, we take the light from the Christ candle to indicate their new life in the righteousness of Christ. The second time we light the Christ candle is at funerals. Again, a reminder of their new life in Christ. Christ candles are usually tall. Ours is, about 40 inches or so. I remember being in Bethlehem and entering the Church of the Nativity over the traditional site where Jesus was born. In this church, there must have been hundreds of Christ candles lit, and most of them were standing at a height of 8 to 10 feet. What a powerful celebration of the presence of Christ among us. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.